They say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes dressed as family. But no one ever warned me what it feels like when that betrayal shows up while you're dying. Imagine your heart failing, your vision blurring, your voice choking. And the only thing louder than the beeping monitors is the silence from the people you gave everything to. Not because they didn't get the message, but because they were too busy styling curtains, fixing lighting, or posing for a magazine spread with your name erased from their priority list. That was the moment I knew I wasn't part of their world. I was just funding it. My name is Emily. I'm 34 years old, living in West Haven. And until recently, I was the invisible backbone of my family. I've spent the last 11 years working as a senior financial consultant, running analytics for hedge funds, building investment portfolios for tech executives, and solving crises others didn't even know were coming. Numbers always made sense to me. Emotions, not so much. Maybe that's why I thought I could earn love with stability, buy respect with responsibility, and hold on to family by constantly giving, even when no one asked me how I was really doing. On that Thursday morning, everything had been on schedule. My clients' Q3 investment projections were prepped. My slides were polished. My heels clicked confidently across the office floor. As I walked into the conference room, where 40 executives waited for me to present. But halfway through explaining projected returns, the colors on my slide started swimming. My heartbeat sped up like it was trying to escape my chest. I gripped the podium harder, blinked, then blinked again. "Are you all right?" someone asked from the back. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The room tilted sideways. The next thing I knew, I was on the floor, staring at ceiling tiles as voices blurred around me. "She's not responding. Call 911. Stay with us, Emily." Everything went dark. Cold. That's the first thing I remember. Not the chill of the hospital room or the bite of the 4 in my arm, but the hollow, bone-deep cold that came with realizing I had woken up completely alone. The rhythmic beeping of machines was the only sound accompanying me as my eyes fluttered open. I was in the ICU. The ceiling lights hummed overhead. My head throbbed faintly, and every limb felt as if it weighed 100 pounds. A sticky note was taped to the small tray table beside my bed. It was from my assistant, Rachel. "We'll be back tomorrow. Rest. Everything's under control." There was no note for my family. I turned my head slowly toward the door, hoping absurdly that someone would walk in. My mom. My dad. Even Brandon. Nothing. Just the nurse making her quiet rounds outside the glass partition. When she came in to check my vitals, she smiled gently. "Good to see you awake, sweetheart. You gave everyone quite a scare." I swallowed, throat dry. "Did my family call?" She hesitated, then reached for the small phone dock on the side table. "Your mother left a voicemail earlier. Would you like to hear it?" I nodded. That flicker of hope, however foolish, still sparked somewhere inside me. She pressed play and gently placed the receiver by my ear. "Hey honey, we saw your messages, but we can't come right now. Brandon's apartment is being photographed today. Big spread for modern living. You know how he gets about lighting and colors. He's just overwhelmed. We'll try to stop by tomorrow if he's feeling better. Love you." Silence. The nurse looked at me, her expression caught somewhere between pity and apology. I turned my face away, tears sliding across my temple and into the pillow. Not a word about me. Not even a question. My heart had almost stopped, and still I didn't make the cut. I stared at the ceiling, the sting of that voicemail still echoing louder than the beeping of my 4 machine. This wasn't a one-time oversight. It wasn't new. It was just the latest chapter in a long book I never wanted to admit I was writing. Last summer, I covered Brandon's $85,000 credit card bill. After he maxed it out trying to launch a podcast studio that never aired a single episode. The year before, I funded his wellness supplement startup, which turned out to be a rebranded version of vitamins from Amazon. Total loss, $30,000. I'd paid his rent for 4 months, bailed him out of a bad crypto investment, and just last month wired $5,000 to my parents, as I had done every month for the last 4 years. "It helps with your dad's blood pressure meds," Mom had said. "We're so proud of you, Emmy." Proud enough to post Instagram stories of Brandon's living room makeover, but not proud enough to show up when I was fighting for my life. I reached for the phone again, my fingers trembling less now. This time, I wasn't calling my family. I scrolled to the contact labeled Derek, lawyer, and hit dial. He picked up on the second ring. Emily, are you okay? No, I whispered. But I'm done pretending I am. I need you to bring the papers. All of them. There was a pause. All of them.
Yes.
I'm removing them from my accounts. The will. Everything. List the vacation house today, if possible. Are you sure? It's aggressive. I stared at the four in my arm. My heart literally stopped yesterday, and they were fixing Brandon's lighting. I'd say aggressive is long overdue. Derek's voice tightened. All right, I'll be there in the morning. I hung up and placed the phone gently on my chest. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. For the first time in years, they were shaking with purpose. Derek arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. Press suit, leather briefcase, and an expression I'd only ever seen on him during intense client arbitration. His eyes widened slightly when he saw me, pale and wired to machines, but he didn't comment. That's what I liked about Derek. He dealt in facts, not pity. Jesus, Emily, he said, finally pulling up the bedside chair. You look like hell. Thanks. I always count on you for honest flattery, I replied, my voice low but steady. He opened his briefcase and began laying out document after document on the tray table. This is everything you requested, but just to confirm. I'm sure, I interrupted. Start with the will. He handed me a pen and the first packet. You're officially removing Charles and Linda as your beneficiaries. I signed. No hesitation. Next, he continued, these revoke their access to all shared financial accounts and credit lines. And here's the property release form for the vacation house. A memory flared. My father lounging in that house every summer with a drink in hand, claiming he deserved rest after raising such high achievers. I nodded. Listed today. Derek slid over the next set of pages. Do you want to add Brandon's business grant cancellation to this file too? I looked at him. What business? He doesn't have one. We moved through the paperwork like soldiers clearing a battlefield. Each signature felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, my money, my space, my voice. As Derek packed up, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. Crisis averted. Brandon found the perfect couch for the photo shoot. How are you feeling, sweetie? I turned the screen toward Derek. He let out a low whistle. That's something. Watch this, I said, opening our family group chat. My fingers typed faster than my pulse. Still in ICU after emergency heart surgery. Glad Brandon's couch made it. Thanks for checking in. Derek raised an eyebrow. Poking the bear? I met his gaze.
No.
I'm waking it up. I should have known that message would bring the beast out of hiding. It was barely 3 hours later when I heard the sharp echo of heels storming down the ICU hallway. At first, I thought it was a nurse. Then I saw the flash of my mother's unmistakable red handbag swinging like a weapon, her face twisted in fury. She didn't knock. She didn't even pause. She slammed open the door and marched straight toward my bed. What the hell is this message, Emily? I blinked, my voice even. You got it. Good. You ungrateful little girl, she hissed. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By humiliating us in a group chat. I remained still, the 4-line tugging slightly as I adjusted. You didn't come when I was dying, Mom. A group chat is the least of your worries. Behind her, I caught a glimpse of Brandon trailing in silently, looking vaguely uncomfortable. Dad stayed in the hallway, conveniently absent as always. You stopped our accounts? Her voice cracked, not with pain, but entitlement. $5,000 a month, Emily. That wasn't a gift. That was your responsibility. I laughed once, bitter. No, it was your lifeline. And I just cut it. She snapped with a scream that sent a chill down my spine. She grabbed the tall stand beside my bed and yanked it toward me. Before I could react, she swung it, its metal edge catching the side of my head with a sharp crack. Pain shot through my skull, I screamed. Monitors blared. My heart rate spiked. The machine shrieked warnings I couldn't process. Security, someone shouted from a hallway. I could barely breathe, barely speak, but I managed one word as blood trickled behind my ear. Help. The door burst open. Officer Mills and a nurse rushed in. My mother stepped back, startled, but it was too late. The officer grabbed her arms, twisting them behind her. Ma'am, you're under arrest for assault. As they dragged her back, I watched her expression shift, not to guilt, but to rage. You can't do this to us, she screamed. But I already had. The pain in my head was sharp, but not as sharp as the clarity settling in my chest. As Officer Mills restrained my mother against the far wall, the nurse checked my vitals, gently dabbing the side of my scalp. Her hands were steady. Mine were trembling. You're safe now, she said quietly, her eyes scanning the bruising. Paramedics are on their way to evaluate the injury. My father peeked into the room, only to be met with the officer's firm glare. Sir, please step back. This is now an active crime scene. Brandon lingered by the doorway, pale and frozen like a man caught in someone else's downfall but not sure how to run from it. Within 15 minutes, 2 uniformed police officers arrived. One took custody of my mother, who now sat handcuffed in a wheelchair in the hallway, ranting about family betrayal and disrespect. The other came directly to me. Miss, he said gently, I'm Officer Grant. We need your statement. I nodded, even as the nurse continued wrapping gauze near my temple. Go ahead. I told him everything. How I collapsed during a meeting. How no one from my family came. How they ignored calls and texts. How I'd financially supported them for years. My parents, my brother, paying off debts, sending monthly allowances, funding their entire lifestyle. How much money are we talking about, ma'am? He asked. Hundreds of thousands, I said calmly. Over the last 7 years. And today she struck you because… I told them it was over, I replied. No more money. No more access. That's when she came in and grabbed the 4-stand? I nodded. He jotted notes. You're officially filing charges?
Yes.
Against my mother for assault. I paused. And I want my father and brother investigated. Financial coercion. Emotional exploitation. I have evidence. My lawyer can provide everything. He raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed by my composure. All right, we'll take it from here. As the officer stepped away, I caught a final glimpse of my mother being rolled down the hall, still ranting, still unable to understand that for once, she couldn't control the narrative. I leaned back, wincing from the throb in my head, but not backing down. The silence in the room was peaceful, and justice had finally begun. By the time the sun rose the next morning, the story had already begun to spread, quietly but fast. A woman arrested for assaulting her daughter in an ICU room. That didn't stay buried for long in a place like West Haven, especially when the victim was a respected financial consultant tied to some of the city's elite investors. Derek arrived just after 10 a.m., phone in one hand, a stack of documents in the other. They're not going to like what happens next, he said, sliding a printed screenshot across the tray table. It was Brandon's Instagram story from just 2 days ago. Thankful for family support. Couldn't have done this without mom and dad. #blessed, #fun_deadbelove. Underneath was a comment from a follower. Didn't your sister just end up in the ICU? I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. That's your leverage, Derek said. Now, let's expand this case. Within hours, Officer Grant called back. We've reviewed your financial records, he confirmed. Your lawyer submitted transaction logs, wire transfers, even text messages where your brother asked for emergency money for business expenses, then spent it on gaming equipment and furniture. I stayed silent, listening. We're issuing arrest warrants. Your father and brother will be brought in for questioning today. And they were. By late afternoon, a squad car pulled into the quiet cul-de-sac where my parents' home sat like a shrine to appearances. According to Derek, both Charles and Brandon were taken into custody without incident. Brandon had been in sweatpants. My father was still holding his morning coffee. They looked stunned, Derek reported, as if consequences were meant for everyone else. That evening, the hospital TV played a muted news segment. Local family under investigation for financial abuse and aggravated assault after woman hospitalized with severe kidney failure is attacked in ICU. I didn't need the sound. I knew the story now. It was finally mine. 3 days after the attack, a different doctor entered my room. Not carrying medication, but a clipboard and a look of cautious optimism. "You've stabilized nicely," she said, checking my chart. "Your kidney function is responding to treatment, and your blood pressure is under control." I looked up at her. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means," she smiled, "you're medically cleared to leave the hospital soon. You're also stable enough, if you feel ready, to attend court." That word landed like thunder and peace all at once.
Court.
Derek had filed all necessary charges. The DA was on board. My mother was already in custody. My father and Brandon had been released under surveillance, pending formal hearings. The court had requested my in-person testimony. Now, I had the green light to deliver it. That afternoon, the nurse helped me sit up properly, detaching me from a few machines. I dressed slowly, carefully, in soft layers Derek had brought from my apartment, comfortable but strong. Not for their sake, for mine. At the courthouse the next morning, I was wheeled into the building, flanked by hospital staff and Derek. Heads turned. A few reporters murmured. "Don't look at them," Derek said under his breath. "Look ahead." And I did. Inside the courtroom, I faced the people who had once been my entire world. My mother, stone-faced, my father, anxious, and Brandon, slumped like a child denied candy. The judge, a calm but firm woman named Judge Hamilton, looked down at the files before her, and then at me. "Miss Emily," she said, "you're here to speak. Please proceed." I looked directly at my family. "My name is Emily," I said, voice steady. "I nearly died, and they didn't show up. But this isn't about who didn't come to the hospital. This is about who came to my life only when they wanted money. This is about being treated like a wallet instead of a daughter." No one interrupted me. No one dared. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't asking for love. I was demanding justice. The courtroom held its breath as Judge Hamilton reviewed the final pages in front of her. The silence was thick, but I sat still, shoulders square, heart steady. My testimony had landed. And from the looks on the jury's faces, the truth had finally been heard. The judge's voice rang out, clear and unwavering. "Linda Bennett," she began, turning her gaze toward my mother, "this court finds you guilty of aggravated assault committed inside a medical facility against a vulnerable patient, your own daughter." Gasps echoed across the benches. My mother flinched but remained silent, lips pressed into a cold line. "You are hereby sentenced to 4 years in state prison, with no early parole due to the nature and setting of the attack." A shudder rippled through Brandon. My father stared at the floor. Judge Hamilton turned her attention to them next. "As for Charles and Brandon Bennett, based on the financial evidence and documented history of manipulation, this court orders you both to be placed under supervised financial probation, pending the outcome of continued investigations into coerced dependence and fraud." Brandon muttered something inaudible. My father turned ghost pale. Then came the final blow, the one they never saw coming. And given that the victim, Miss Emily Bennett, solely supported the family financially, including mortgage, utilities, and all associated household expenses for over 5 years, this court awards full legal custody and ownership of the Bennett residence to her, effective immediately. I inhaled sharply, stunned for a moment. The house. My childhood home. The same house where I once had report cards, cooked dinners alone, and paid bills while being told I was just helping out. It was mine now. Not gifted. Not inherited. Earned. Outside, reporters asked for comment. I gave none. Inside, my family sat shattered. Fractured not by lies, but by truth, finally spoken aloud. Derek leaned toward me, his voice low. "We did it." I nodded slowly. "No," I corrected. "I did it." And for the first time, no one tried to take credit for my strength. It belonged entirely to me. The keys felt heavier in my hand than I remembered, not because of weight, but meaning. As I stepped out of the car, sunlight poured over the perfectly trimmed hedges and familiar front porch of the house I had silently funded for years. The same house where my family had taken, demanded, and dismissed me. Now legally mine. Derek stayed in the car, letting me have this moment alone. I stood at the door and breathed in. No tension sat on my chest. No voice told me to dim my shine. No one called me dramatic or difficult. It was quiet. Just the wind, a creaking shutter, and the soft rustle of leaves. I unlocked the door. The scent inside was still the same, linen spray, and my mother's Chanel perfume clinging to the drapes. But something was different, too. The air no longer resisted me. I walked room to room, touching the walls, the furniture, the fireplace mantel where only Brandon's graduation photo once sat. I'd spent countless evenings at that very table, paying bills they never asked about. I'd covered the mortgage as a favor, bought groceries because Dad forgot, and fixed plumbing since you're good with numbers. They never said thank you.
I didn't need them to.
I was reclaiming my space. Not for revenge, but for restoration. Later that evening, I opened my laptop at the kitchen counter and stared at the blinking cursor on a new blog draft. It would be the first entry in a series about healing, boundaries, and rebuilding life after family betrayal. The blog title, Recipes for Resilience. I smiled as the first line formed in my head. The hardest meals I ever prepared were the ones I made with pain in my chest and silence at the table. But now I cook with peace, and every bite tastes like freedom. Behind me, the home no longer whispered memories of pain. It waited quietly, respectfully, ready to be filled with new ones. This time on my terms. 3 weeks after returning home, I walked into my sunlit kitchen, brewed a cup of herbal tea, and hit publish on my third blog post. Recipes for Resilience had gained traction faster than I expected. Comments flooded in from people who had walked similar paths, thanking me for putting into words the pain they'd carried for years. My first 2 videos on my YouTube channel, one about lemon rosemary chicken, the other about how to set boundaries without guilt, had crossed 50,000 views. I wasn't trying to be famous. I was trying to breathe again. In the mornings, I worked remotely as a part-time financial consultant, taking only select projects that didn't drain my peace. In the afternoons, I filmed, wrote, and edited from my cozy kitchen studio, where laughter finally echoed louder than obligation. The house, once a symbol of control, now felt like a sanctuary. Derek visited often, sometimes for legal follow-ups, sometimes just to bring coffee and share a laugh. He had returned my grandmother's necklace too, polished and strung on a new chain. I wore it every day now, a quiet reminder that some legacies are worth reclaiming and some are worth breaking. Brandon tried emailing once, something about misunderstanding, emotional pressure, and therapy. I didn't respond. My father sent a formal letter. For what it's worth, I was wrong. Not just about the money. About everything. I filed it away, not out of anger, but closure. I wasn't building my future on borrowed apologies. One afternoon, I received a comment on my blog that made me pause. I left my toxic family today. Your story gave me courage. Thank you for showing me that walking away isn't giving up. It's growing up. Tears welled up, not from sadness, but something pure, something lighter. Freedom. As the sun dipped behind the trees, I placed my camera on the tripod, adjusted the lens, and smiled at my reflection. Welcome back, I whispered to myself. Because this time, the story I was telling didn't belong to my family. It belonged to me. If you found this story powerful or relatable, don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more real-life inspired narratives. Your support helps bring more voices and stories to light. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.